Are you interested in starting to contribute to open source projects and would like to understand how to get going? I'm here to help you with that and share my experiences and my tips on how to start your journey towards contributing to the open source community. So let's have a quick look on what open source actually is. For me, open source means to share my knowledge, my experiences, and my code with others, and giving them the possibility to interact with me and myself and the code that I've been writing. I have been using a lot of open source projects and open source tools, and if you're building software, you definitely have done that yourself. The starting point for most of the software projects today is GitHub, which has become the kind of standard for working with open source projects. There's other source code providers, but in this video today I'm going to focus on working on the projects in GitHub. So my first tip on how to get started with open source is that you need to find a project that is good for you and that will match your skills, your passion, and your interests. At the end of the video, I'm also going to share with you some resources on how you can get to know open source projects and find maybe something that fits to you. My advice here would be start with something small. A very good example for that might be something like Projen pipelines. And I can talk about how to contribute to Projen pipelines because that's one of the projects that I'm working on. Look at a project that is pretty small, maybe only 1 or 2 contributors that is starting to kind of ramp up its work and get in contact with the persons that have created that project. Another good example would be this GitOps bridge, which is then used to deploy a Crossplane and Argo CD on top of a Kubernetes cluster. It's also a very small project. Starting with small projects gives you the possibility to interact with the contributors and the maintainers and get to know the processes and the thoughts behind that before you actually run into the bigger projects that have a lot of workflows that you need to be aware of. My next tip is about reading code. You should read a lot of open source code. You should learn from others on how they actually implement some stuff, because this is your chance to grow with open source. So if you're interested in a particular topic, like I am interested as an example in CDK or Projen, right? Look at that project. Look at the pull requests that go into the project. Read the source code that the developers have been producing. And with that, you're going to not only see good levels of code, but you will also get a chance to understand the thought process behind the implementation of the changes in the different projects. And this will give you a good handle on how to add your first contribution to an open source project. Open source does not only mean to contribute code. Open source starts with you adding and creating issues for things that you have identified that are not maybe solving things that you need from a specific open source project. As an example, in the Projen pipelines, if you have an issue or something that is not there that you would like to get, your journey starts on going into the Issues tab and then creating an issue. And just add your ideas here. Right? You will not get any hate. You will not get any problems. You will have people asking you maybe, why the hell is this something that you want to look at? And as an example, I've been adding some issues as well, right? So in this project around Code Catalyst blueprints, I have created an issue. I also had a problem lately with one of the implementations in a different project. It really starts with just contributing to open source starts with creating an issue. So you give an input into a project that you're passionate to use. If you have done these things, so if you have created issues on GitHub for open source projects, if you have read code in open source projects, if you have looked at pull requests in open source projects to understand how people act, then it's time to pick a project that you would like to be involved with. And this could be bigger projects or could be smaller projects. As I said, my advice would be to start with something small. But I'm going to highlight 2 or 3 bigger projects where I believe that it would be a good starting point because they have very good processes as well. One exceptional project that is really good at getting contributors to work together in an open source manner is the AWS Power Tools team. which is building Power Tools for AWS Lambda. The one that I have looked at most is the Python version, right? And as you can see, there is a big contributing MD file. If you go to an open source project, there should be a contributing MD. The contributing MD file always aims to explain you on how you can get involved. And it also explains on very good and very detailed how the process will be to get your stuff later merged and accepted into the repository. So this is a very great starting point for you to look at how you can get involved with a specific project. The Lambda Power Tools project is definitely one that gets a lot of attention. There is a real team behind that on the AWS side. So I would encourage you to have a look on that one and start fixing small things. Another project that I'm really interested in is the AWS CDK. AWS CDK being infrastructure as code. It also has a lot of different contributors, as you can see, over 1,300. It was originally founded by Elad, who was at that time at AWS. But also here there is a contributing file, right, that gives you a good hand-on. And as you can see, this is a big project. You don't want to start your open source journey in CDK, maybe. But there is a very good documentation on how this can be done, right? So this is your starting point if you want to get involved here. Similarly, there's Projen, who comes out of the same ecosystem. There is a smaller amount of contributors, but I think it's a very powerful project as well. So also this would be a good advice because the community here is very vibrant, right? There is a lot of people working together on this, and there's a Slack instance that you can actually join as well. Then I have been looking at Crossplane. That is also a bigger one. Crossplane is now a project that is supported especially by Upbound as a vendor, but also by other contributors, right? And I think this is something that a lot of the open source projects have, right? Some of them are backed up by specific vendors, but they still encourage open source. This helps you on the one side to ensure that well, you get the community involved. On the other side, by being open, you get the possibility to see if there is any security holes in it. As you can see, also for Crossplane, right, which is part of the of the Cloud Native Foundation as well, there is a big description around how to contribute to that. A smaller one, really growing a lot at the moment also is Winglang. Has only 90 contributors, but there's also a company behind that. Feel free to have a look. And then last but not least, if you want to look at another project focused on developer portals, then Backstage might be a good project for you to get started. And I'm going to add all of these links to the show notes of the video. It's up to you on where you want to get started and where you want to contribute. And let me repeat that it is not important which project you pick to start working on it. But as you add your contributions to open source, you will identify that you will have a passion. And the passion is what you need to find, because you will be contributing to an open source project that is really close to your heart. Because open source work is usually not paid. So you don't get anything from contributing there. So my advice would really be find your passion and contribute to a project that makes sense to you. Now, let's look at how to actually identify open source projects. Of course, you can find open source projects by just going to Google and asking cool open source projects. You will find a hell lot of pages that help you do that. That is always this can help you to find some projects that you're interested in, right? But I would advise you to start on the one side on GitHub and asking for a specific topic, like let's say infrastructure as code. And I hope that I will get something like Terraform, Pulumi, right? This is what I was looking for. So you can use GitHub search to search for open source projects. But also there is a colleague in the AWS space, Ricardo, who is writing an open source newsletter each week, right? And this means that he highlights a few of the cool not only on AWS focused open source project that he has been seeing. So this is always a good thing to get yourself started. And one of the things that I wanted to look at soon, and it did not have time yet, is something that he highlighted lately, which was from a community builder called Steven. I can't remember which of the newsletter it was, but let's see if we can have a look on that one. So it was in the number 184, right, where he highlighted Partysmith as an open source tool, right, which is built by Steven. And this uses Party Rock applications and generates an application for you out of that. So I really like that. That's a cool thing. I want to look at it, and this would be one of the next projects that I personally want to look at. All right. So the open source newsletter helps you to find projects that might be worth investing because they are growing. Another one that I'm really working on a lot is the Code Catalyst Blueprints one, which has recently been open sourced, and you will find a lot of other details around that on my channel. I can only encourage you to start your journey into open source now. Don't be afraid. Don't think about contributing or about doing anything, right? Open source is always driven by community members that are very interested in making their project successful. They will value your input. They will ask for your reasoning behind questions or behind any source contributions that you do. So please, never be afraid and never give up if a contribution is not directly accepted by the team. They might know more than you, right? And they will help you and they will teach you to contribute to the project that they are passionate about. Or you can teach them about one of your successful open source projects once you have kicked off your journey. So get yourself going. If you need any help or tips or tricks, reach out to me so I can help you a little bit as well.